That's when it happened. And of course, now virtually every CEO has an MBA, or wishes he did. So that's the short answer. Well, what's the solution then? Well, here's another short answer. That's all I've got time for, a short answer. Is to persuade management schools and their faculty and students and their business constituency that globalization is changing, and it has changed the role of business in society, and therefore the economic, social, and environmental, and therefore changed the economic, social, and environmental responsibilities of business. That's what we have to do. Because where you have that model being ingrained in our students is in management school. That's where they're being educated. So I think management schools, the evidence of the need, well, I've talked about the financial crisis. Here's an interesting fact, maybe most of you are aware of it, I'm not sure. But if you do a survey in a university that's been done, this is good research as near as I can make out, where are you most likely to find cheating prevalent? Well, two places: management schools and economics departments. That's where people are most likely to cheat. And these are the people that we're graduating into management positions in our society. And there's a good reason for that, because it's in those contexts that self-interest is driven into its prominent position as a motivational force. And it's legitimized by the theories, management theories that are put in place. Economic theories, for example, is a good example. The bribery pandemic, in my view, is another indication that this is a real problem. We've never paid attention to it in this part of the world because it doesn't affect us. It affects other people out there. So the bribery pandemic has not been used to condemn the system of management that we're putting in place. The financial crisis is, because the financial crisis has hit us in the pocketbook. Another evidence is the increasing power and impact of corporations. I wish I could talk about this a little bit longer. I had a little bit more time, I don't. But if you looked at a chart that I have available, you'd see that corporations have financial resources which exceed the financial resources. The largest corporations have financial resources that exceed the financial resources of countries like Sweden, or Indonesia, or Canada, for that matter. So enormous power and the capacity to exercise that power in some very significant ways. One of the thoughts that I leave you with is that with power comes responsibility. This is a thought that's come out of corporate social responsibility literature, but this is one of the consequences of that increasing power of corporations. Well, is there evidence of change that's taking place? Are management schools responding to these revelations that are taking place? I think I'm going to be closed down very soon, so I'll just tell you, you should read the Saturday Globe. Is it okay to make a reference to the Globe and Mail in Calgary? The focus section of last Saturday's Globe and Mail talks specifically, in fact, I've got it here. It's a fascinating article. I solemnly swear, it says, never to become Bernie Madoff. And then it talks about what's happening in management schools across the country, including Harvard, where Harvard has a pledge in place now, which its management students take on graduation, very much like a professional school, a pledge, not to be like Bernie Madoff. Harvard is taking this seriously in some sense, and that's what's going on across the country. I wish I could talk to you a little bit, but the best I could do is to say, this is what's going on in management schools. This event today is an example of the phenomenon. Management schools are beginning to come to grips with the issue. The evidence of a need for change? Well, I think if you did a survey, we don't do enough of this kind of survey, but I think if you survey institutional investors, particularly pension funds, ask yourself, those of you who work for Calgary, what are the principles that drive the management of the Calgary Pension Fund? Calgary has one, I'm sure they do. What you'll discover is that there's almost not a pension fund manager at a senior level in this country that's ever heard of socially responsible investment. And virtually nobody who's going into the business field, including all of the people who are being graduated by our management schools, knows anything about socially responsible investment. And the reason for that is because it's anathema in our finance areas. Absolutely anathema. Socially responsible investment runs against all of the principles that are taught in our management schools. So these ideas, students never have an opportunity to confront them or to evaluate them. I'm not suggesting that we should convert finance areas or finance managers. I'm just suggesting we have to open the door to a wider range of ideas so that our students at least know something about it when they get out there. And I try to work with younger people, even with my own investments. Some of my own family, as a matter of fact. And none of them, until I talked to them, knew anything at all about socially responsible investment or the idea that they should be paying any attention to it beyond returns, short-term returns on the funds that are being invested. And if you look at our pension funds, university pension funds across Canada are the most conservative and have resisted most vigorously any suggestion that they should take into account whether or not the corporations in which they're investing engage in things like bribery. Resist it out of hand because it's entirely incompatible with investment models and with investment theories which they have learned in our management schools. And so they resist it. Our university pension funds are the most conservatively managed in terms of these ideas of any funds in the country. It's astonishing to see what it is that in fact is going on. The danger, in my view, is a focus on individuals and not the principles on which the systems rest. Because what you have to understand is that people who believe in the model believe they have an obligation to maximize profits which override other obligations. It's a role obligation and it's deeply ingrained. So when they engage in bribery, they're not doing something wrong, although they know very, very well that if they get caught, they're going to be sacrificed by the corporation. They know that for sure, that if they ever get caught doing it, that they're going to be sacrificed. But we know what's going on. We know that our corporations are engaging in it. So my conclusion, whoops, I think that's my last slide, better be. My conclusion is that we need to look at management education if we're going to change the system. And we need to look at the principles on which the system is based. And that we should not think of ethics education in management schools as making better people. That's a terrible mistake to make, because the people go into a system where they have virtually no choice if they're going to be a part of that system. If you go into a pension fund, for example, as an investment advisor, you have no choice if you're going to stay in that position, except to follow principles that in fact encourage the kind of behavior that in fact we're talking about today. You have no choice. And when you do it justifiably, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what the system calls for. You're not acting unethically. You're in fact fulfilling your responsibility to shareholders and to the people who have hired you. So we need to see how that system of values operate and recognize that if we're going to get a change in behavior, if we're going to deal with these financial crises, for example, that have been created, we have to change the principles on which management is based. And that's not going to happen until management schools begin to change the way in which they think about